came across this eerie tale from a random stranger on an online forum. This guy, a collector of bootleg Pokemon games, had an experience that still sent shivers down my spine. He loved hunting for those oddities, games like Pokemon Diamond and Jade or Chaos Black. You'd find them in the strangest places: pawn shops, Goodwill stores, flea markets. They were usually good for a laugh with their funny mistranslations and poor quality. But there was one game that he found 5 years ago that was different. He bought it at a flea market and had never seen or heard of it before. Unfortunately, he lost a cartridge during a move a couple of years ago, but he did share a picture of it once. The label read Pokemon Black version, not to be confused with the official version that came out a few years after the story. This game started with the usual Nidorino and Gengar intro from the red and blue versions, but something was off. The press start screen showed red, but the Pokemon didn't cycle through as they normally would. Instead, it read Black version beneath the logo. When the stranger started a new game, everything seemed normal at first. Professor Oak gave his standard speech, and it looked like an ordinary Pokemon Red hack. But after choosing his starter, he noticed something strange. Alongside his Bulbasaur, Charmander, or Squirtle, there was another Pokemon named Ghost. This ghost was level 1 and had the eerie spirit of the ghost seen in Lavender Town before you obtained the Sylph Scope. It had only one move, called Curse. Now, this wasn't the curse move that we know from later generations. This was something else entirely. In battles, enemy Pokemon were too frightened to attack Ghost. When Ghost used Curse, the screen would cut to black, and the cry of the opposing Pokemon would be heard distorted and low-pitched. When the screen returned, the enemy Pokemon would be gone, as if they had died. In trainer battles, their Pokeballs would disappear one by one. After defeating a trainer, instead of ending the battle, the game presented the battle options again. If he chose Run, the battle would end normally, but if he used Curse, the trainer's spirit would vanish. Returning to the area later, a tombstone would stand where the trainer once was. Curse didn't work on ghost Pokemon or certain trainers like the Rival or Giovanni, at least not until the battles with them. It made the game unsettlingly easy, and the stranger used Ghost throughout his journey. Things got really bizarre after he defeated the Elite Four. The Hall of Fame sequence showed Ghost and a few other Pokemon he used for HMs. Then the screen cut to black, displaying the words, "Many years later." It showed an old man standing in Lavender Town looking at tombstones. This old man was his character, moving slowly and with no Pokemon in his party. Not even Ghost, which couldn't be removed before. The overworld was empty. No people, just tombstones marking where trainers had stood. The Lavender Town theme played on a continuous haunting loop. The stranger wandered the empty world, eventually finding that a previously blocked path through Diglett's cave was now open, leading back to Pallet Town. Entering his old house and stepping onto the starting tile caused the screen to cut to black again. Then one by one, spirits of Caterpie, Whittle, Pidgey, and other Pokemon he had cursed appeared, followed by the trainers. The Lavender Town music played, but it grew deeper and more distorted. Finally, the battle screen appeared, showing his trainer as an old man facing Ghost, with no Pokemon or items. His only option was to fight, which caused him to use Struggle. This did nothing against Ghost, who simply stared back until his HP was nearly gone. Then Ghost used Curse. The screen cut to black one last time. No matter what he did, the game was stuck on this black screen. Restarting the game only allowed him to start anew. The save file was erased. He played this game many times, but it always ended the same way. Even if he avoided using Ghost, the ending remained unchanged, cutting straight to the final confrontation. No one knows who created this hack or why. It wasn't widely distributed, suggesting it wasn't made for profit. Maybe it was made to create a message about death's inevitability. Or maybe it was just a morbid twist on a beloved game. Wherever the reason, the spotlight left a lasting impression, making him reflect deeply on its dark themes. The original Sonic.exe story centers on Tom, a young man who was a big fan of Sonic the Hedgehog, especially the older games. He claimed that he had never played any hacked or glitched games before, though he did admit he didn't want to after an experience he had. He then proceeded to recount his experience, saying how he received a CD accompanied by a letter left by his friend Kyle, begging him to destroy the disc before it's too late and not to play the game. Ignoring his friend's warnings, Tom played the game and began to encounter odd, somewhat disturbing phenomena. From a title card featuring an evil-looking Sonic with bloody eyes and glowing pupils with a wide smile to the presence of a file select screen similar to that of the one in Sonic the Hedgehog 3, with a red background and chilling music playing. As he picked the only available character, Tails, and began the first stage titled Hill ACT-1, Tom continued to find more evidence that there was something wrong with the game, namely the copious amounts of dead animals, all murdered in gruesome ways, and eventually encountering Sonic at the end of the level, standing completely still and with his eyes closed. When Tails attempted to get his attention during a cutscene by tapping him on the shoulder, Sonic's eyes opened, identical to the Sonic on the title screen before cutting to black, with the message, "Hello, do you want to play with me?" In the next level, Hide and Seek, Tom witnessed Sonic chasing Tails, Tails flying despite an inability to do so without a super form, before disappearing, teleporting in front of the distraught Fox and killing him and cutting to black. Shocked, Tom reads the next message. "You're too slow. Wanna try again?" After playing as Knuckles and losing a supposed boss battle with Sonic, Tom decided to take a break from the game. However, his rest was interrupted by nightmares about Tails and Knuckles and the demonic Sonic, with him awaking in a cold sweat. Returning to the game, Tom picked Robotnik from the file select screen and continued with the game. At the end of the level, Sonic teleported him in front of Robotnik, before the screen cut to red static. Then a hyper-realistic image of Sonic appeared on the screen, with the words, "I am God," after the game ended. Tom turned around to find, to his utter horror, a bloodied Sonic plushie on his bed. Tom's fate is ambiguous, though the official sequel reveals that Tom committed suicide to escape from the evil entity. This guy had a deep love for two things when he was a kid: Godzilla and NES games. So when Godzilla Monsters of Monsters came out, it was like a dream come true for him. He got the game as a present for his 10th birthday and quickly became obsessed with it, despite its repetitive levels and mediocre gameplay. But fate played a cruel trick on him. A year later, he traded the game for another one called Amagon, a decision he deeply regretted after realizing how bad the game was. Fast forward to recently, he managed to get his hands on a new NES system. After a lot of searching and asking around, his friend Billy finally found a copy of Godzilla Monsters of Monsters for him. Excited, he didn't even think to ask where Billy had found the game. Along with it, Billy also gave him other classic titles like Legend of Zelda and Bomberman. But for him, Godzilla had to come first. As soon as he started the game, the nostalgia hit him hard. Godzilla's 8-bit theme song played through the speakers and he grinded like a kid again. Some people laughed at him for playing such outdated games, but those 8-bit adventures took him back to simpler, safer times. However, his nostalgia was about to take a dark turn. He had forgotten how quickly the fun of smashing things as Godzilla wore off in the scrolling levels. Bullets and enemies bombarded him from all directions, and Godzilla's massive size made it hard to avoid them. Still, he pushed through, eager to relive his childhood. His first boss battle was against Ghidorah, an obscure squid kaiju not even featured in a Godzilla movie. Ghidorah had this annoying move where he would back you into a corner and smack you with his tentacle, stalling the fight until the timer ran out. This time though, something went wrong. The timer was supposed to end the fight in 40 seconds, but Ghidorah kept smacking him for nearly 5 minutes. The screen glitched with little red blocks appearing everywhere. He took the cartridge out, blew on it, and started again. He wasn't going to let a little glitch stop him. The next time he defeated Ghidorah and the other boss monster, Moguera, without any issues. But then he moved on to the next planet, Mars, and noticed something strange. Instead of Varan, there was a piece representing Titanosaurus, a monster not originally in the game. Excited at the thought of playing a prototype with a new monster, he rushed through the levels to see Titanosaurus in action. He fought Ghidorah again and defeated him so quickly, but the glitch occurred again when Ghidorah died. His spirit didn't sink to the bottom, instead it was devoured by the glitch, and his eyes started spawning randomly all over the screen. Ignoring the warning signs, he proceeds to fight Moguera, who was now twice his usual size and much harder to beat. When Moguera died, his spirit shattered and melted rapidly, and a garbed image of what appeared to be a bird in a cage flashed on the screen. Despite the growing unease, he proceeded on to fight Titanosaurus. Surprisingly, Titanosaurus looked fine, although he was taller than the other bipedal monsters. After an intense and fun battle, he defeated Titanosaurus and took over the enemy base. But instead of moving on to Jupiter like normal, the game took him to a place called Pathos. And that's where his story ended, leaving us all wondering about the dark path that this game was taking him on. There was an ominous feeling that something more sinister was lurking within his childhood favorite game, something that had been waiting for years to be discovered.